But the divine counsel, what is it? If you see Daniel 7, 9, and 10, there's another scene of a divine council where God stands in the assembly of the holy ones. And in 1 Kings 22, 19 through 23, it talks about what we just heard about Ahab and the lying spirit. That was set up in the council, the divine council. I want you to read for next week. The whole reason we went through this, and I know we just touched on it, and I didn't want to get bogged down in a lot of demonology and angelology and stuff like that. Michael Heiser has written a book called Angels and another book called Demons. If you really want to get into that kind of stuff, there's a book called The Dictionary of Deities and Demons, which will tell you more than you ever wanted to know about ancient cultures and who they believed existed in the spiritual realm. But if you look at those that in your notes, you need to see that the whole reason I went through this is I want us to understand we have a real, intelligent, evil enemy who is out to rob and kill and destroy. But we shouldn't fear that enemy because we are in the loving hands of God. But we need to be aware of his presence. And so that's one side of the ditch. We can fall on one side of the road. The other side of the ditch is what Jesus warned his disciples. Remember when he sent out the 72? And they came back all excited. You know, Jesus, you won't believe what happened. Even the demons were cast out. And Jesus said, wait a second. Don't rejoice in the fact that you have power over the demons. Rejoice in that your name is written in the book of life. We can't fall in the ditch of, hey, we have power over the devil. We can't fall in the ditch of saying the devil is this enemy and woe is me, and every time I turn around, it has to be the devil. Okay? Joni, you're tired tonight? Could have been the devil. It could have just been a screw that was on the road. Okay? We're not looking for devils behind every corner. But we do need to understand that we live on a spiritual battlefield. And that's why Paul said you need to put on the armor of God. Because you have an enemy that's coming for you. Okay? I'm not telling you to scare you. And next week when we actually look at the armor of God, we're going to find out, why is it called the armor of God? It's because in the Old Testament, God actually puts on armor. And Paul uses a lot of that imagery in what he wrote to the Ephesians in chapter 6, but he changes some of it, which is really interesting. So if we understood where Paul got that, Paul was a brilliant man. He was the Pharisee of Pharisees. He studied Scripture. He knew Scripture backwards and forwards. And it's a good thing he understood it backwards because that's how Hebrew is written. But he understood, and what he did is he took the language of the Old Testament, which talks about the breastplate of righteousness and the sword of the Spirit, the helmet of salvation. He takes all of that symbology and he writes it to the Ephesians in chapter 6. And we're going to look at and compare what does that mean and why is it important that we put on each of these pieces of armor to be successful. Okay? Are you going to disown me? Am I still on your Christmas card list? I know this is uncomfortable. But the reality is that it's not just angels and angels have wings and demons have horns. That's cartoonish. But we can't dismiss it all just because it's cartoonish. We need to look at the reality of what's really going on. Okay? I love you guys. And I hope you come back next week. But I felt like we had to get into this reality of the unseen realm before we could really fully understand what the armor of God is.